Good evening and welcome to this Zoom session. The opening ceremony will be slightly different than usual because it's Zoom and because we're socially distancing. But welcome anyway. It's a particularly effective time to be doing Sesshin. Everything is changing. In fact, this evening, or actually this afternoon, when we went to get on the internet to double check some things, there was no internet to get onto. So we picked up the telephone to call Kit Carson Telecom and asked them about it. And there was no telephone. And we grabbed the cell phone, which if you walk about halfway up the driveway or even get up to the road, you usually can get a signal, and there was no signal. So we continued walking over to the neighbor's house and knocked on the door, and Richard answered, and I said, "Do you have internet?" "No." "Do you have a cell phone?" And he checked, and he didn't have it either. So it was going to be interesting to do a Zoom session with no connectivity. But apparently the powers that are, or be, or whatever you want to call it, decided otherwise. And we now have connectivity. And so it's especially fine to be able to welcome all of you on Zoom, and also everybody here in the Zendo too. There's only 4 of us altogether, actually physically present, but that doesn't matter. We can still have an incredibly powerful session, particularly with all of you out there. Folks from Turtleback Zendo joining in, and Bokudo from Canada, and so on and so forth. We have a wonderful group of people. So why do we do Sesshin? What motivates us to do Sesshin? For many people, there is this sense that something's missing, that there's something we can't quite get hold of, that maybe we knew it before, but instinctively we know there's something more, and there is. It's very interesting that neuroscience has discovered that there's no sort of seat of direction in the brain, that sensations come in through the senses, and then it's almost as if there's some kind of efforts independent of any driver that connects with different aspects of the brain, different parts of the brain, depending on what the situation is, depending on what the sensory input is, and depending on what the history is as well. But there's no driver. There's nobody in the driver's seat. There's no me saying anything. There's no me doing anything. It's interesting that the Buddha discovered this, more than 2.5 millennia ago? And that we can too. It's quite an adventure. Because if there's no director, how are we functioning? How do we know how to function? You probably know that we have 2 hemispheres, most of us, in our brain, left and right. And the left hemisphere is where language is activated and made possible. The right brain understands, but cannot speak. And yet, a while ago, I think it was like 8 years ago or something like that, maybe more than that, there was a neuroscientist who had a stroke that took out the left side of her brain. It took her a long, long, long time to recuperate and to return to being able to use that side of her brain. But she wrote a book about it, her experiences, and she eventually went back to work as a scientist, different in her outlook because of what she had realized when her thinking brain was offline, but her perceiving part of her brain was quite a bit online and not interfered with by the thoughts and the ideas and the assumptions and the conditioning. People with half a brain are able to function initially when the hemisphere is removed for whatever reason, and there are a number of reasons why this happens to people. There is some paralysis on the opposite side and so on, but the other side of the brain seems to take over, certainly with children. There are cases quite well known about this. It's also well known that what we think is not necessarily accurate. What we remember, independent of dementia, independent of Alzheimer's, is actually part of a process that is estimating what the future will unfold as based on our previous experience. And so our memories are constantly being revised? Sort of like a guided missile. Starts off this direction, and then it's not quite on course, or the course changes, so it's adjusted to go this direction a little bit. And then there's another adjustment, and it continues on. It's kind of like that, apparently, from what they're discovering. So who are we? What is life about? This is an amazing adventure. We're doing an inner exploration of our very being, tuning in, and as part of that, moving beyond words, thoughts, ideas, to something more accurately reality, which is, of course, always changing. So what is it that knows? Where is that one? That original face, a face before our parents were born. The true person of no rank. Rinzai has said, there is a true person of no rank coming in and out of the doors of your senses. And your eyes, in seeing, it is called sight. In your ears, it's called hearing. And your tongue, it's called tasting. Your feet carry you. Your hands grasp. There's true person of no rank. Who is that one? This is what we're on the grand exploration to find, to uncover, because it is always there. And yet it's not an it. Fluid, changing, flexible. And even those descriptions is far beyond description. It cannot be described, which is why we can't think our way to it. In times like this, when there is significant change, when we can't do what we're accustomed to doing. For some time, we couldn't even go outdoors. And even now, when things are opening up, more and more people are getting sick with a disease that can kill in a very nasty way. And even if we get it and recover from it, it's now known that there are ongoing side effects, ongoing results of the damage that has been done by that virus. It's a complete unknown. It hasn't hit humans before. So there's nothing in place scientifically to be able to deal with it. There's a great deal of anxiety and fear. And again, as I said, we're so limited in what we can do. We can't do the things we used to be able to do, at least not for now, not until the major part of the danger is done. At least we can't do it without risk. So when we can't do our usual, then there's a tremendous opportunity to open to a new direction. And there are so many new directions to open to. We have a choice also not to substitute something, but rather to open to possibility, to open to the possibility that that true original face will be revealed to us in any moment, suddenly, without warning. The more deeply we do Zazen, of course, that is something that we have to be very careful about, not getting an idea about, not putting ourselves into a rigid place in terms of what Zazen is. And for this, I remind you of the story of Yaeko Iwasaki, the young Japanese woman who was dying of TB. And it's a true story. Mitra-roshi said he had never seen such a peaceful death. This is a woman who couldn't even sit up, coughing blood, fever, exhaustion, dying. And yet she came to increasingly profound and deep awakening day after day after day, the last 3 weeks of her life. We have a form that has been shown through history to be effective, at least in certain cultures. And here in the Zendo, we sit on tons. Most recently, we've been able to build tons, the raised platforms in the Zendo, which has changed the possibilities quite a bit, because sitting Rinzai style, you can sit with your legs down as if you're in a chair. And you can also sit in Zazen postures as well. It's important, whatever we do, to push the envelope on our comfort zone, to be willing to look beyond where we usually look, maybe to do a little more yaza than we have accustomedly done in previous sesshins, since all of you have been to sesshin before. Question, but don't question with words, question with that intangible sense of openness to possibility. And in this way, together, because even though most of you are not physically present in the Zendo, your energy is still here. And our energy is still with you. And together, we have so much power and so much potential. So, even though we're not doing the opening ceremony as it normally would be done. Still, welcome again. And as Hakuin used to say, if you give yourself to this practice fully, you cannot fail to come to awakening any more than you can fail to hit the ground when you stamp your foot. And of course, that's a beginning. But there's no point even in thinking about awakening because it is a process. And that's something for everyone to recognize. Many, many years ago, as some of you already know, when I was in my first years in training at the Rochester Zen Center, living there, doing as many Sesshin as possible, doing, of course, all the sittings. And I started seeing people around me, my fellow Rochester Zen Center folks who were living there at the center as well, being passed on their breakthrough koan. I wasn't. And I was beginning to get kind of down about it. And so I went to talk to a friend, Frank Howard, who with his wife had both gotten through fairly recently. I think he got through first and then Gretchen got through later. But they had been passed on their koan within the last year or so. And I said, you know, is this ever going to happen? And he said, don't worry, it's all cumulative. And I didn't understand initially what that was about, but every single time we extend that out breath, reaching as far as we can through that breath, allowing our awareness to expand so we're not pretending that the birds that just chirped a minute ago don't exist, not pretending that the airplane noise overhead is not happening, but being open to the whole thing, at the same time being focused on this reaching beyond through the extended out breath and this curiosity. There's something I can find, there's something I can open to, and it's going to be so worth it. And it will be. So have faith that every single time you bring your mind back to the breath, to the practice, it is making a difference. And as Frank said so long ago, it's all cumulative. And one day, what Hakuin said will be experienced by you yourself. So now we'll do a little sitting. And then the formal part of the opening ceremony will be done. And you can keep on sitting. That's wonderful. The Zoom will probably be shut down until tomorrow morning. But don't let that stop you. And thank you for being here.